Welcome to Take It from the Iron Woman. My name is Susanne Müller, your host and the Iron Woman. This podcast is about empowering yourself and others to make real changes in the world. You will hear from everyday, smart, sophisticated, hip people like you and me. Not everybody has to be an Iron Woman to impress the world. Together, we will learn from the sports and business leaders how you can become a more successful person as an entrepreneur or a leader. It's one step at a time, one day at a time. Take your steps now. Take your big steps now. Join me on this journey to success. This podcast is being sponsored by Get Loopy. On episode 41, you can hear the story of Isabel, the co-founder and CEO. Get Loopy, get a 20% discount off your first order. GetLoopy.com. Take it from the Iron Woman. We only have special guests, and today we have Noel from Singapore with us. So now we have spoken to Noel before. And Noel and I, we do probably similar work, training, coaching. Tell us a little bit about your work, what you do, training and coaching with others. Obviously, we met in Appreciative Inquiry conference in 2009. What do you think you have taken away from that conference that you're still using?
I think that conference was quite life-affirming. Mm-hmm. It confirmed the path that I was going to take as a facilitator and the kind of work that I would be doing over the last 10 years, right? So I actually pursued using a lot of appreciative inquiry in my facilitation and organization development work. I think the idea of positive strength-based psychology, I buy into it a lot, not because just because it fits in with my philosophy about life, right, and organizations, but when I see the impact of the interventions on participants in the room and after, I see there's energy and dynamism to change. There's enthusiasm and collective morale goes up. So I think when I think about the investment into that wonderful conference way back then in 2009, it's yielded not just work, right, professional work that is satisfying, but also results for the client organizations that I worked with over the last 10 years. In particular, I would say that right after the conference, or maybe in the middle of the conference, that period, I was already working with the prison service in Singapore that was undergoing a physical clusterization process. That means they were consolidating all the prisons into one location. And the interesting brief was, I want from the client was to say that we'd like to not just physically move, but we want to use this opportunity to move to have all the staff, right, all 600 prison officers of that particular division to come in and re-envision their work, re-envision what it means to do this work together. And actually that piece of work was translated into a journal paper that I subsequently presented at the Budapest OD conference, World OD Summit, some years down the road.
Oh, nice.
And then it spun off to different things. I had worked with education, organizational work. So I think if I think about the kind of range of work that I did with AI, it's pretty amazing journey.
And I think for especially what I took away, it's like you learn something that you can use with your clients, with your audience, but it was also something for myself. So it's kind of like shifting your thinking and just meeting all those wonderful people. And we said we have our mutual friend, Jan Sommers in Belgium. Yeah. We had him on the podcast before. It's just nice to have met so many different people and what they are using the appreciative inquiry for. So it's really beautiful.
Absolutely. Very good memories. And to the extent that we haven't been able over the last 10 years, I mean, because we're such a global group at that point in time, right, that I'm not sure whether beyond counting just the local Singaporean delegates as well as some of the other overseas, like for example, my interaction with you primarily through social media channels. Even though we haven't had an opportunity to visit together and be in person with each other, the real benefit of that conference is that that there's like-minded, kindred spirits somewhere on the planet that had a shared experience with you,
Yeah.
that was drawn to the conference and had a personal impact on you. So those things I'd say would be priceless.
Yeah.
Not just from a memory point of view, but the interaction is priceless. And actually, that's where the power of appreciative inquiry work, right, is about, right? It's the power of the interaction too. When you ask a certain kind of positive questions, it yields a certain kind of positive result.
And it's about the humanity and the word that I learned there, the Ubuntu, the coming together and being together and uniting and making a better world. So I thought that was so beautiful, and just the most beautiful people we met. And I have to say, one of my experiences was when David Cooper-Ryder, obviously the head guru of the appreciative inquiry in the US, he was sitting in front of me and he turned around and he said, "Hello, I'm David." And I was like, oh, wow, this was so beautiful. Everybody knew him. So I thought that was talking about him and talking about humanity. It was just amazing.
So I had the opportunity actually also to link up with him again, because if you remember at the Kathmandu conference, there was a contingent of Filipino delegates, Dean Rose and her faculty from the Southeast Asian Interdisciplinary Institute. They went on to run 2 AI conferences in the Philippines, and they call it the Asian AI Summits. The first one, I managed to show up as a delegate. I think David Cooper-Ryder was there. And then the second one, they had Diana Whitney as the keynoter, virtual keynoter, and I was invited to be the actual in-person keynoter too. So I think in a sense, I got to rub shoulders with these luminaries several times after the conference too. So it's great to interact with colleagues who have the same passion about outlook and philosophy on life and organizations.
Yeah, it's beautiful. We spoke before about sports, about your cycling, and I always ask, like, how can you transfer that into the leadership and the training that you do? What can you share with the audience?
So thanks for that question, because some years ago, when in my I think it was my parting shot as the chair of the International Association of Facilitators, that I wrote kind of like goodbye message to the membership, because I was outgoing already. I thought that that particular message brought into the frame the context of cycling, which I was already doing quite a bit. So allow me to share some points that, if I remember correctly, I'll share some points. So one of the things that as a cyclist you do is, personally for myself, it's in the circumstances and the busyness of work, what we want to be able to do is bring our best self to the organizations that we work with, whether you're internal or external consultant. So one of the things that deals with the complexity and noise of life is that I often really enjoy riding alone in the early hours of the morning, where I describe it as my moving meditation. That's where I still my thoughts, I get ready for the day, I pray, and that's the part of preparing for me to be at my best self when I'm working with colleagues. Cyclists always have interesting things to say, interesting expressions, right? So one of the things that I remember being told or reading is this notion of everything clicks after a ride. Right? Everything clicks after a ride. So you may go out with a question. When you come back, you realize after 1.5 hours being by yourself, and for me being in communion with the Almighty, right? I think most times I come back with like, oh, I'm absolutely clear about what I need to do on this issue, how I'm going to show up. That's one. So it's almost like self-leadership, right? Honing self. There's also this notion of looking forward, looking sideways, and I believe looking backwards. So let me just unpack this a little. So I feel that, and this is sometimes when we are riding as a group, right? When you're leading the pack, you're actually facing most of the resistance of the wind, especially when there's a very strong headwind, right? Some of the research I've read about, like wind tunnel tests, etc., it's like the guys at the back, they save so much wattage because of the work done by the people in front. And I think when we are leading from the front, I think it's important to recognize that people are relying on us to pierce through the resistance. And then it's also to signal that we need to be able to occasionally take turns when we are doing pace lining, right? To take turns so that somebody else can come to the front and take the brunt of the wind for a while. While you rest up and you rest in the shelter of those who are providing that initial thrust of the peloton, of the squad. And as you restore yourself, then it becomes your responsibility to come to the front again. I think sometimes my group and we tend to get sometimes quite frustrated when a stranger comes along and enjoys the benefit of our work. And it's fine, right? Because we're all out and cycling, but in the squad, there's an understanding that everybody shares the load. When you are stronger that day, you do maybe a bit more, right? When you're feeling like you're not enough sleep or whatever, you need to tuck yourself behind, then do so. But, there's an understanding we share the load. So when we are moving as a squad looking towards the front, I think it's important. So when you're cycling looking forward, when you're going around a bend, right, the common sense knowledge that people tell you is that you don't look down, you look where you want to arrive at. So that speaks to me about vision. What's the vision that you have? Don't just focus on the immediate issues. And so I think sometimes when we work with leaders and groups, we need to tell them to shift their vantage point up, to look just around the corner. What's there? It could be an opportunity, it could be a sense of threat, but what's there? So looking sideways, I go to the next point, which is looking sideways. Why is looking sideways important? Looking sideways because most accidents happen when you're crossing a junction, because you're looking to the front and you're not getting this multi-perspective view of things. And so this is where I think in our work with organizations and leaders, it's again a reminder that our role is to help our clients develop a multiple perspective of their environment, right? Not just look to the front, right? Not just head towards goals, but develop a sideway perspective so that they can understand where they are in the context of time and space and whatever threat potentially might be out there. Yeah, there's also this other notion of what we call half-wheeling. I'm not sure whether you're familiar with half-wheeling. So when you're cycling in a squad, what you're trying to do is to make sure that the front wheel of the guy behind you doesn't cross over into where your rear wheel is sideways.
Yeah.
Because that's where accidents also happen quite badly when you have to turn. Because once the wheels touch, then velocity is lost and then you crash. So that speaks to me about like when you're in an organization and there are many moving parts, right? Is there that sideway perspective is to see what's the progress people are making and are we moving in synchronicity with each other? Are we moving in tandem with each other? And the reality is some parts of an organization will move faster than others. Others will be more slow. The idea here is ultimately you end up with spatial awareness that you must have. Right. So actually we in the squad that I'm in, we always say that, hey, no half-wheeling, no half-wheeling because it's bad news for everybody. Right?
Everybody falls.
Bad news for everybody.
Yeah.
So looking sideways is very important. So what about looking back? So such is the nature of cycling that you basically find it easy to look forward than to look back. But why is looking back important? Looking back, like this morning, on this morning's ride, we were moving from east back down into the city. And there was a moment where we just turned back somehow because we were filtering onto another lane. And then there was this glorious sunrise behind us. What's that an analogy for looking back? I think a lot of times we don't think about the journey we've done. We always say, like, people in organizations, right, we say we need to get better, we need to go further. But actually, if you just think about it, journey that you have made, where your point of origin was, and from an appreciative point of view, the kind of progress people have made to get to where they are is nothing short of amazing. And oftentimes, if you just happen to look back, you'll be surprised about what vantage point, what beauty, what amazing stuff that has been done that you get to see. So occasionally look back, right? Occasionally look back. Looking forward, looking sideways, looking back.
Thank you so much for sharing the sideways, looking forward, but also looking back and some inspirations that you have gotten on the bike.
I think because I often ride east in the mornings, the notion of every morning the sunrise is different. right? Of course, those what you call Instagrammable sunrise dawn shots where the sun is a rock solid sphere or circle is amazing, and I think that speaks to the beauty of what nature creates for you. What it does for me is that it reminds me that it's a brand new day. In my faith system, it's a brand new day that has been created for me to be a part of, to contribute to, and yet also to receive blessings from. Whenever I see a really amazing sunrise, I try to stop to take a picture. But that's common, isn't it? That's what we train our eye to look for. And there are mornings also where the sunrise isn't great, and actually can be the dawn sky isn't great. In fact, a storm is rolling in. And we do get in Singapore, we get what we describe as a Sumatran squall in certain parts of the year, where the storm rolls in from Indonesia across the Straits of Malacca, and they come in very quickly. And the winds are quite powerful because on occasion, they are able to rip a tree they can topple trees. Not like a tornado, but they are strong enough to topple trees. And I think that reminds me of this awesome power of nature, that we think with our intellect and our civilization, our development, that we are, as a species on this planet, we are like at the apex, right? But actually, there are forces of nature that continue to remind us that we are mindful about our impact on the planet. I take both really pleasant weather and then the storms to be powerful inspiration for my thinking about how I should live on this planet.
Noel, I wish you good luck with your race, with your fundraising, and thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you so much.
Take it from the Iron Woman. We have episodes every Monday, every Wednesday. Don't miss out. There is something for everybody. And don't forget to order Get Loopy. GetLoopy.com. You get 20% off of your first order. Get Loopy is the plant-based snack. And Take It From the Iron Woman is also a book. You can get it on Amazon. It's a paperback or an ebook. Take It From the Iron Woman. See you next time.